The Prelates were a group of Sanshayum super soldiers whose bodies were enhanced by the Covenant's sacred promissory through the use of reverse-engineered Forerunner technology. An unknown number of Prelates were trained and augmented within the sacred promissory, mainly for the purpose of leading Jiralhanai vessels against the Sangheili in the Great Schism. Before the Schism, these specialized warriors were known to the other members of the Covenant, but their training and activities were kept a close secret, so that even the Prelates' own family members were unaware of what their missions involved. Leading this initiative was the Ministry of Preparation and its minister. They were the only ones who dared to dabble in gene alteration. No other Covenant ministry wanted to tamper with the fragile Sanshayum physiology, primarily out of fear that they would further reduce the already restricted number of fertile or genetically viable Sanshayum. However, the ingenious Minister of Preparation, Borua Neem, was able to produce the opposite effect for one individual using Forerunner Lifeworker machinery. The prelate Tembetek belonged to an overbred lineage, and he was thus placed on the Sanshayum's roll of celibates. Following his recruitment into the Sacred Promissory and the Ministry of Preparation's genetic experimentation, he was removed from the role of celibates and paired with a wife. She eventually conceived and later gave birth. There were, of course, other enhancements given to the prelates, which made them dangerously capable warriors. The most pronounced enhancement is that the body of a prelate is not dependent on a floating chair for transportation, but is fully mobile and physically fit, unlike the hunched and feeble Sanshayum that represented the majority of the species by 2552. Prelates were able to match and even overpower Sangheili warriors in battle, although accounts of their involvement in the Great Schism seem to indicate that they had limited opportunities to actually engage in physical combat against the elites, as they primarily took part in ship-to-ship warfare. According to Tembetek, the Minister of Preparation hoped that they would even be able to defeat Spartan super soldiers. By the hands of the Sacred Promissory's chirurgeons, prelates were given biochemical augmentations which granted them extremely fast movement speed and reflexes, but not at all times. A prelate's mind was the catalyst for these augmentations. By willing his body into a state of combat focus, or lifting mental gates, his enhanced nervous system and implanted chemicals would work together to greatly amplify his physical abilities. It appears that these warriors could control their fight or flight response and harness it to achieve peak physical capability in short bursts of hyper-lethal speed. When the implanted hormones rushed through a prelate's body, he would perceive reality as happening at a slowed rate. This effect bears at least a passing similarity to the phenomenon known as Spartan time, in which an eponymous super soldier perceives time and action as moving simultaneously faster and slower than normal. A prelate's enhancements could also be activated reflexively in certain stressful situations. These enhancements were not, however, without drawbacks. As the prelates pushed their bodies to their absolute limit while training inside the Sacred Promissory, they discovered the consequences of abusing their augmentations. These hazards included sudden, debilitating exhaustion, seizures, and in rare cases, death. Prior to these more severe problems, there were warning signs. These included a light dizziness at the back of the skull, muscle aches, heavy breathing, muscle spasms, frayed nerves, and constricted vision. Because of these limitations, only several bursts of chemically enhanced speed could be used before they caused the body to become temporarily burned out. During the recovery period, some abilities such as speech may be slurred or even unusable. Also, a prelate could be stopped from activating his enhancements if he were suddenly and unexpectedly attacked, such as being shot with a projectile weapon. These warriors were given armor that was superior to many other Covenant combat harnesses. It was described as being deep black, with plates which were light but strong. The armor had resilient energy shielding, which could withstand a strike from an energy sword. This armor could also repair itself, perhaps through the use of nanotech? Additionally, it possessed a reactive gel layer, similar to Mjolnir. It was apparently the finest creation of the Minister of Preparation's foundries. Tem was also equipped with a crescent-shaped hardlight shield, which could be used offensively to devastating effect. It could easily sear through energy shielding, armor, flesh, and bone. It is unknown if all prelates were issued this same hardlight shield, although I think they likely were. He was also equipped with an anti-gravity belt for greater movement speed and tactical capability. Tem utilized the Brute Plasma Rifle as his ranged weapon of choice. As part of their training, Prelates were often sent on missions to the far-flung reaches of Covenant space. This was done mainly for secrecy. Importantly, the opening stages of the Human Covenant War saw many Sangheili shipmasters gift old and purposefully handicapped starships to Jiralhanae war chiefs as a reward from the Sanshayum for the Brute's loyalty. The Covenant wanted as many warships as it could muster for the conflict with the humans, but that didn't mean that the Sangheili were going to allow the Jiralhanae to become overly powerful, much less bother to train them in the use of these vessels. So, they removed any substantial weaponry and powerful systems. The Prophet of Truth had other ideas, so the Prelates first stepped into active service aboard these starships. According to Artus Vadum, the elites were aware of the Prelates' assignment. Their role was innocuously explained as technical advisor. However, on their journeys into deep space, far from unwanted interest, the Prelates were actually tasked with upgrading the Brute ships. And not only that, but these Sanshayum warriors were also instructing their Jiralhanae crews to be able to fight and destroy the Sangheili. When the Great Schism finally began around High Charity, the fleets loyal to the Prophet of Truth gained an immediate advantage by initiating the battle against their former allies, despite the fact that the Prelates only had CRS-class light cruisers under their direct command. The Jiralhanae did, however, have CPV or other class destroyers, and together they were able to cripple the CAS-class assault carrier Eternal Reward. Were it not for the flood outbreak within High Charity, there is a high possibility that the elites would have lost the battle. Once the Sanshayum were fleeing in full force from the infested interior of High Charity, the Prelates' vessels disengaged from the battle to evacuate survivors and carry them away from danger, and both Sangheili and Jiralhanae warships turned, temporarily, to cleansing any potentially infected vessels, single-occupant vehicles, or troop transports that might have escaped either Delta Halo or High Charity, though the latter was mainly targeted by the Sangheili. The cruiser Spear of Light, commanded by Tem Batek, was able to rescue the Minister of Preparation and break through a Sangheili blockade to escape the C-List system. It was believed by the elites that all of the Prelates, save Tem, were killed at High Charity, and there is no indication that any of them other than Tem escaped to the flotilla of Sanshayum survivor ships, those who fled the war altogether. This last prelate, mourning the loss of his wife and newborn child, who both died inside High Charity's residential districts, blamed the Sangheili for everything that had happened, especially Shipmaster Artus Vadum and the Shadow of Intent. When the minister asked Tem to help him escape the flood, he also promised that together they would get revenge on the Sangheili for their purported betrayal of the Covenant. While the prelate only wanted revenge on the Half-Jaw, the minister intended to use a newly discovered small-scale prototype Halo installation to cleanse the entire population of Sanghelios, and they both planned to capture the Shadow of Intent for their respective purposes. When this plan was set into motion in 2553, it began with the slaughter of numerous Sangheili. Tem used his cruiser, Spear of Light, to brutalize a distant Sangheili settlement, hoping to draw the Half-Jaw Artus Vadum into his trap. Thel Vadum had ordered the shipmaster to take the assault carrier far away from the various rival factions on and around Sanghelios in 2553, as it was a tempting and powerful prize. However, instead of rest and recovery, the crew of Shadow of Intent found themselves responding to a distress call from the planet Ranello. This was the start of a trail that led them to another colony, Duran, where the prelate was waiting to face the Half-Jaw. Once their battle started, Tem sacrificed his ship in a bold move, allowing him to personally board the Shadow of Intent. However, despite the fact that he and his Jiralhanae boarding party were able to kill several elite rangers, he was ultimately captured and his warriors were killed. While the prelate sat in confinement, the Half-Jaw went to interrogate him. During their conversation, the prelate was told that there were still Sanshayum alive in High Charity by the time he had departed the city, despite the minister's insistence that there was nothing left alive inside the dome except the flood. Artus Vadum, unfortunately, had been too late to rescue civilians from the spreading infestation, a fact which he regretted. At first, Tem Batek refused to believe this, knowing that if it were true, he had unwittingly abandoned his family to a terrible fate. In the meantime, the Half-Jaw devised a plan to find and stop the Minister of Preparation. Using Spear of Light's nav data, he set course for a hidden system, where he would find the Forerunner facility housing the miniature Halo installation. Upon arrival, the skeleton crew of volunteers, who had managed the assault carrier's slipspace journey, then emptied into 2 Phantom dropships, and the assault carrier continued closer to the orbital facility, with its onboard computer as the pilot. The prototype Halo eventually fired as the ship drew closer with no communication from the prelate. This left everyone inside the Phantom stunned or unconscious, although Tem was able to shield himself against the brunt of the firing using his mental enhancements. Following a brief clash with Artus, in which he managed to escape his restraints, he fled the dropship and used his anti-gravity belt to reach the orbital. Once inside, he went to confront the waiting minister. Upon being questioned, the Elder Sanchayum confessed that he had deceived him in order to use his zeal and hatred for the Sangheli to accomplish his mission, the extermination of all Sangheli on Sanghelios. Stating that he no longer needed him, the minister then ordered his swarm of loyal Yanmei to attack the prelate. Even his shielding and armor did not withstand the flurry of plasma bolts and needler shards directed at him, but the Half-Jaw and another Sangheli warrior made their entrance at this point and managed to gravely wound the minister. Regrettably, he retreated to a lower level in the facility, intending to fire the prototype ring one last time. Artus and the other warriors set to work killing the drones and whittled their numbers down significantly by the time the ring's charging sequence activated. Meanwhile, a wounded Tembatek allocated a satchel of plasma grenades from one of the dead Yanmei, and with effort, brought it to a shaft which led to the station's power network. He warned the 2 Sangheli to flee, and after they had done so, he dropped the explosives into the shaft, destroying the Forerunner installation before the prototype Halo ring could fire. The Half-Jaw and the other warrior survived, but the last known prelate sacrificed himself to save those whom he had believed for so long to be his enemies. While it's quite likely that Tem was indeed the last of his kind, there may be a possibility for prelates to appear in future media. In the minister's final words to his former comrade, he says, "There were not many Sanchayum who could match your skills or your devotion, and now perhaps there are none. But we are not the only ones who escaped the holy city, and there will be many, full of rage or hungry for glory, who will gladly take your place." It's an interesting quote, and perhaps one with deeper meaning than might first appear. Let's take a look at the DSC-class support ship, also known as a procurator. These were vessels commanded by minor prophets, and most were under the influence of the Prophet of Truth, who directed them to support the Jiralhanae later in the war. After the Great Schism and the fall of High Charity, they escaped to the flotilla of Sanchayum survivors. A quote from Halo Warfleet adds particular relevance to this information. The Ministry of Preparation built and maintained specialized support ships fitted with arcane instrumentation and a staff of chirurgeons to create prelates, genetically enhanced Sanchayum super soldiers. While it seems that the Minister of Preparation did believe that there were no more prelates, he may not have intended it to stay that way. There is the possibility that he was aware of, or at least hoped to find, one of these specialized procurators and the lifeworker tech they were carrying. It seems, to me, odd that the Minister of Preparation would speak of normal Sanchayum as being viable replacements for Tembatek, unless he believed he could alter them and create another line of prelates. However, with the brilliant-minded minister dead, the one who, through his understanding of Forerunner technology, unlocked the potential of genetic engineering for his people, there would have to be another individual or group of individuals with the expertise and drive to unleash more prelates on the galaxy. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for over 100 subscribers. I am quite thankful for this positive response, and it's really heartening to see my content get the attention it has. Leave a comment down below telling me what you think of the prelates, and let me know if there's a subject you'd like me to cover next. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Until we meet again.